Daniel Mercer closed his eyes, pressed his forehead against the steering wheel, and held it in, that sound that had been buried inside him for so long. The dim light of the parking lot fell softly against the windows of his black Toyota Camry. It was 11 at night, and the world outside was silent. But inside Daniel, something was breaking slowly, quietly, the way an old tree clings on before it falls, and then one day comes down without a sound. He hadn't come here to be seen. He had come here so no one would see him. Emma was home, his 7-year-old daughter, asleep. Their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had stayed over for a few hours. Daniel had said he needed to go to the grocery store. That was a lie. The grocery store was closed. But inside that small 2-bedroom apartment, the air was so heavy, with bills, with exhaustion, with loneliness, that he couldn't stay there one more minute. So he just got in the car and let himself cry, with everything he had, without a sound. Shoulders shaking, chest burning, tears falling that had been held back for months. These tears weren't just about today. They carried the weight of 3 years since the night Rebecca was taken in a car accident, and Daniel was 29 years old. Emma was only 4, and the world had been flipped upside down in a single day. In 3 years, he had learned how to get up in the morning when he had no will to rise. He had learned how to make Emma pancakes and smile when everything inside him was numb. He had learned how to walk into school, meetings as the only single father, while everyone else came in pairs. He had learned how to be both a father and a mother. At the same time, for a little girl, who sometimes said at night, "Daddy, does Mommy watch me from the sky?" And today he had been told at the office that his job was gone. Company downsizing. Nothing personal, Daniel. But it was personal. It was everything, because he was already 3 weeks behind on his salary, because Emma's school fee was due next month, because there were 2 days of food in the refrigerator, and only $47 in his account. Thinking about all of this, the tears came again. He pressed his hand over his mouth and told himself, "Pull it together, man. Emma needs you." But this time those words weren't working. This time the door he had kept shut for months came open. And then, knock, knock, knock. Daniel's eyes flew open. Against the window was a hand, deeply lined. Trembling slightly, an old woman's hand. She was standing outside, quite elderly, white hair, blue eyes, and an expression that was neither pity nor curiosity, but something else. Something Daniel recognized, an old, deep kind of understanding. Daniel wiped his face, rolled down the window. "Ma'am, I'm fine," he said. That first lie a person always tells when they are anything but fine. The old woman shook her head. "No, you're not," she said, directly but gently, "and that's okay." The next morning, Daniel sent his resume. That same evening, the call came. There was an interview 2 days later. Daniel pressed his best shirt, told Emma that Daddy has something important, and went to the office of Margaret's son, James Holloway. James was a serious man, not a man of many words. He looked at Daniel's resume for 10 minutes, asked 3 questions, and then said, "My mother is a good judge of people. She always has been. When can you start?" Daniel was about to cry again. This time he didn't stop himself. "Monday," he said. James extended his hand. "Monday it is." But this story is not just about a job, because 6 months later, when Daniel's life had begun to find its footing, a new home, Emma's new school, a little room to breathe, Margaret's health began to decline. She lived alone. James was out of town most of the time, and Daniel saw that the old woman who had stopped in a parking lot one night was alone in her own life. So he did what he had learned. He stayed. Every week, Daniel would bring Emma to Margaret's home. Emma started calling her Grandma Maggie. Daniel didn't even notice when it happened. Margaret would laugh with delight. She would tell Emma stories of her own time, of her husband, of her home. And Daniel would watch and think that the world sends certain people to us because it knows we cannot survive alone. One night, Emma had fallen asleep in Margaret's lap. Both of them were watching television. Margaret said without being asked, "She looks like she's loved." Daniel answered, "She is. She really is." Margaret smiled. "Rebecca would be proud of you." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. But this time they were different. Not of pain, of gratitude. That feeling that comes when someone says something that is true and that you could never say to yourself. "I think about her every day," Daniel said. "Good," Margaret said. "That means she's still here." A year passed. Daniel had become the lead project coordinator at Holloway Construction. Emma was in 3rd grade, a star student. Margaret's health was better. The doctors said the regular company had made a difference. James invited Daniel to dinner one evening and said, "I don't know what my mother saw in you that night, but she was right." "She's always right," Daniel said. "She saw a broken man." James said, "No, she saw a man who hadn't given up yet." "There's a difference." And then that day came. It was Emma's school recital. She was performing in a small play. Daniel sat in the front row, Margaret beside him. James there too, having made time from his busy schedule. Emma came onto the stage, in her white dress, pink ribbon in her hair, and when she looked out into the audience and found her father, she smiled. That smile that only comes when a person feels completely, entirely safe. After the performance, Emma came running. First, she held on to Daniel. "Daddy, did you see me?" Then to Margaret. "Grandma Maggie," I sang the loud part. Margaret held her with everything she had and said, "You were the best one up there, my love." Daniel looked at Margaret. Margaret looked at Daniel. Nothing was said, but everything was said. This was the moment. Not the moment when he got the job, not when the new home came. This moment arrived when his daughter's eyes held the whole world, a father's love, an old woman's warmth, and the safety that only comes when life finally finds its place. Daniel closed his eyes. Rebecca's face came, that smile, those eyes. He said to her inside, "I kept my promise. She's okay. We're okay." If you ever see someone crying alone in a parking lot today, stop, look once, because Daniel Mercer's story didn't begin when he got the job. It began when an old woman stopped walking and knocked on a window. A small thing, one stop, one knock, and an entire life was changed. Friends, this story ends here. But one question for you. Have you ever stopped for someone, or has someone ever stopped for you? Make sure to tell us in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, like this video right now. Subscribe to this channel and send it to someone who needs a little courage today. Your one share could change someone's entire night.